Last week, we got so much new information about the upcoming FNAF game Into the Pit, and we have to go over it. From a new trailer to some crazy lore drops, we're getting a really good idea of what we might see. And 2 days ago, the jeffspizza.club website opened up. I'm writing this as of the 8th and recording this as of the 10th, so I don't know what'll be on that yet, but I will write and record something after the website goes live to talk about what it has. So, slices, put on your aprons and let's bake ourselves a theory. Earlier this year, we got some leaks for a new game by Megacat Studios about the Fazbear Frights story Into the Pit, presumably bringing that story and its lore into the game's continuity. But before we go over the information we just got today, we should probably do everyone's favorite. Riley has to summarize a FNAF story because half of the fandom hasn't read it because either they can't, don't care, or don't want to. Time. So to be incredibly brief, the story follows a boy named Oswald who has a terrible summer, and his only solace is going to the local library and Jeff's Pizza. Eventually, he sneaks off and finds an old ball pit in Jeff's Pizza and hides inside of it to hide from his father. But when he goes into that ball pit, he comes out in a much older pizzeria. Well, it looks newer, actually. It's the same building, but it's now Freddy Fazbear's Pizza with brand new stuff all over the place. As it turns out, Jeff's Pizza used to be that Freddy Fazbear's Pizza back in the day, and he begins visiting this old Freddy Fazbear's Pizza every single day until something goes wrong. On one of his visits, there's people running and screaming, and he sees someone in a yellow Bonnie suit beckoning him to a back room. Once he goes there, he sees 6 dead children. He runs back to the ball pit and escapes, but the yellow Bonnie follows him out, being this somewhat organic monster. His father is chiding him for hiding, but as he's doing so, the monster comes out and attacks him. The father then goes into the ball pit, and the monster yellow pit Bonnie comes out. Then for the next day or two, this pit Bonnie assumes the role of Oswald's father. Everyone else doesn't notice anything is wrong, but Oswald sees this creature for what it truly is. He eventually sneaks back to the pizzeria to try to find his father and does find his unconscious body in the ball pit. There's a fight with the yellow Bonnie as it followed Oswald to the pizzeria, and it gets tangled up in the netting, hanging itself. His father wakes up, and what was that fleshy, toothy pit Bonnie is now a hanging, empty Spring Bonnie suit. The pair then go home. It's a pretty wild story, but I hear you. Is there actually time travel in this FNAF story? Well, that's up for debate. Some believe that to be true, but the evidence in the books suggests otherwise. What many people and myself believe is that a memory is being implanted into Oswald. The Fazbear Frights epilogue feature the very same ball pit, and it's established that blood and agony of several victims is scattered throughout the entire thing. So what is agony? Well, that's a whole nother video, which I've made, link is right here. But to summarize as best as I can, it's essentially the energy from the most negative human emotion, and said energy has the ability to possess certain objects and manifest in other ways. In the epilogues, we also see multiple instances of agony being used to mentally trap someone in memory. So the theory goes that this ball pit wasn't actually making Oswald travel back in time, but rather when he went inside the ball pit and was fully surrounded by agony, he was receiving the memories of some of the victims whose agony remains in that ball pit, specifically victims of the missing child incident, since these memories take place in 1985 at a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and that agony manifested in the Pit Bonnie monster that followed him out. It's still a wild theory and story if that's true, but I personally believe it's much more likely than time travel. Okay, so that's the story and the theories behind it. What did we actually learn about the game that's coming out supposedly soon? A lot, actually. Let's start with the updated Steam page. The description on there is a lot of what we already know, a summary of the story and some basic mechanics. It also mentions that not only our life, but other children's lives and our father's life are at stake here, implying that the multiple endings can have this happen in different combinations. Notably, in the story, Oswald saves his father, but the children are already dead when he finds them, so maybe we can prevent that. The real meat and potatoes of this Steam store page, though, is the new trailer and screenshots that we received. Notably, and this isn't the trailer on the Steam page, but I'll talk about it here while we're talking about this, the new trailer we just got shows, for the first time in the video game franchise history that I'm aware of, a functional, operating, and performing Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, with a performance from the band and everything. With this, we also get possibly one of the most important pieces of timeline lore I could possibly find in this entire franchise. Keep in mind this takes place in 1985. Now look at this performance. In this flashback, Bonnie is flossing, which means in the Five Nights at Freddy's timeline, canonically, Bonnie must have invented the flossing dance, which means there's a possibility that in the Five Nights at Freddy's continuity, Bonnie is playable in Fortnite, which I wish was true in our continuity, because that'd be really funny. Seriously though, we get a lot of information from the background arcade cabinets as well. It's notable that there's a Helpy-themed arcade cabinet as well as a Jacko Chica one. One of the biggest issues with this game, I think, is emblematic with these two arcade machines. That issue being figuring out what is intentional lore and what is an Easter egg for the fans. They've already established this game is going to be chock full of Easter eggs since it is a 10th anniversary game, and we're fairly certain that Jacko Chica, at least up until Help Wanted, was not a canon character. So a arcade machine with Jacko Chica on it in 1985, it raises a good question. Was Jacko Chica a character all the way back in maybe Fall Fest? Or is this arcade cabinet an Easter egg and not a specific piece of lore? The same can be said for Helpy-Lee's, that Helpy-themed arcade cabinet. Now, to be fair, in the leaked photos we got earlier this year, there's a location called The Mill, and in the background of the dump yard, we see a Helpy in the modern day. So the timeline here is very interesting. Was Helpy a character all the way back then, or is this an Easter egg? After all, the vending machine of prizes in that same shot has exotic butters in it, and that's gotta be an Easter egg. But then underneath it is what looks like a bounce pot from FNAF World. So is that an Easter egg, or is Bounce Pot a character that was borrowed for FNAF World? I don't know. That's the big question with this game, besides the multiple endings. I'm covered in cat fur. It's like in my mouth and nose. Mark, you shed so much. The trailer aside, some of the other images on the Steam store page also reveal some pretty major things. We get a shot of this red-eyed Bonnie jumping out from under a table to grab us. Notably, nothing like this happens in the actual story. The only aggressive animatronic in Into the Pit is the yellow Bonnie that comes from the ball pit. But this shot does back up the theory that this isn't exactly time travel, but instead an agony hallucination. After all, if it's agony that's making this place unsafe and dangerous, then likely the other animatronics would be affected by it too. And Bonnie isn't the only dangerous animatronic here, as we get this shot of Chica in the kitchen, also with those same glowing eyes likely to about to attack us. Speaking of this kitchen, as far as I'm aware, this is the first time we're seeing a FNAF 1, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, kitchen, which that's huge. I really love the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Oven. Staying on this shot a little longer though, notice the pose that Pit Bonnie is in here. This isn't the only time we see this exact same pose. In another shot in what looks like our dining room, he's doing the same thing. So just a hunch, but I bet this is part of the gameplay. From what I can see here, it seems like we'll be sneaking around certain parts trying to avoid Pit Bonnie while exploring the map. And I think if he spots us, this is the animation that plays. But essentially, this is the "you got caught, now start running" thing, where he's walking on the screen, spots us, stances up, roars, and chases us. That just seems pretty likely since we've seen this exact same pose twice. Anyway, we also get this really cool shot of a spare parts room with an open chest cavity Freddy. This is important for a few reasons. One, sure, it shows the location we're going to, but more so, it must be in the past. There's a possibility that maybe FNAF animatronics are lying around in a back room at Jeff's Pizza, but it's unlikely. But what seems to confirm that this is taking place in the past is Freddy's chest cavity is open and there's no kid inside. Theoretically, after the missing child incident, if you opened Freddy's chest cavity, there'd be a corpse inside of it. So since it seems empty, this must be before the missing child incident. Or this could be a separate Freddy. Or again, this isn't exactly time travel, so maybe the agony is messing with the memory of the location. We get one more new image on the Steam page, but this one is very notable. We see Golden Freddy in what appears to be another back room. Now, this isn't the first time we've seen Golden Freddy in the advertising materials. He's shown up in the first trailer and Oswald hides inside of him. What's notable though is that this looks like it's the same area, but things are different. The presents and this calendar were added since then. The Balloon Boy poster stayed the same, but where there was this other Fazbear poster, there's now several pieces of paper attached to the wall. This has a few possible explanations. First and foremost, it could just be development. There's a possibility that when they recorded this trailer, the room looked like this, but since then they've fleshed it out more and added more to it. That's totally possible. But another possibility is that this is two different versions of the same room. After all, we have the Into the Pit version of this pizzeria and the modern day version. So the one with the presents and the Fazbear poster and all that stuff should be could be the Into the Pit version, where the ones we see in the first trailer, where it's much more sparse, could be the modern day one. What supports that first idea is that the calendar in this first version says June 1985, and we have a good reason to believe 1985 is the year the missing child incident took place. Notably, the modern day segments seem to take place in August, but this version takes place in June. And that might be incredibly important, because this clue might just give us the exact date of the missing child incident. And it's all thanks to Circus Baby. Oh, my word. We almost always do Freddy, so let's do a guest star for today. Long Pop Goes. For whatever reason, for the longest time, the numbers 1, 5, 7, 8 have been important to Circus Baby. Rarely in Sister Location, you can hear her softly listing off these numbers. And in Five Nights at Freddy's Special Delivery, when 8-Bit Baby goes haywire, those numbers appear all around her. There wasn't really a good lead on what to do with these numbers because they can be arranged in several different ways. But this date might be it. If the Into the Pit flashbacks take place over the last week of June, it's entirely possible that the last night, since it takes place over 5 nights, maybe there's a 6th bonus night, or maybe the 5th night, could be July 1st, the very end of June. And if written as an American date, July 1st, 1985 could be written as 7185. The same numbers, just rearranged. In the Sister Location bunker, until they split off post the game, Circus Baby is sort of the ringleader for the other Funtime animatronics. And if she's repeating the date of the 1985 missing child incident, that would be incredibly solid evidence for Molten MCI, or the theory that the original animatronics that the MCI victims were stuffed into were melted down and their remnant was injected into the Funtime animatronics, and then later they form into Ennard and then later form into Molten Freddy. Now, don't get too attached to this theory and speculation just yet. After all, right now, there's still 2 major issues with this interpretation. For one, we don't know when in June these flashbacks are going to take place, and until the game comes out, we have no way of knowing, and we might not know after the game comes out. It could be any time in June. And the more glaring issue is that only Circus Baby says these numbers. You would think if it was the missing child incident date, then all of the Funtimes would be saying it, and so would Molten Freddy, and so on and so forth. But it's just Circus Baby. If anything, it might be Elizabeth's death date and the day that she became Circus Baby. After all, if you rearrange those numbers, you can get several dates in 1978, 1981, or 1985, all possible dates for Elizabeth's death. So it's worth pointing this out now, but until the game comes out and we have more information, don't put too many ducks in a row just yet. But luckily, we are nowhere close to being done talking about what this game tells us about the missing child incident. Around the same time as the trailer dropping on the Guerrilla Collective showcase, Megacat Studios updated a website showcasing more about Into the Pit and giving us more screenshots and GIFs from the game. We also got some written information that isn't on the Steam page. 2 of the more important bullet points were, quote, test yourself or take it easy in hard and casual modes with varied difficulty, and uncover secrets in fatal minigames and discover different endings. First off, I believe this will be the second ever official FNAF game to have difficulty settings, the first one being FNAF World. And this will be the first horror one, so that's pretty hype. But that second bullet point is of special interest. And I know how much this community likes our special interests. Uncover secrets in fatal minigames, to me, sounds like they're bringing back the classic death minigames that we've seen in multiple FNAF games. The formula of having low-bit, smaller games to give us really important but still vague bits of lore throughout the game. But honestly, I'm not sure what lore it could tell us in that format, because it seems like this game is going to be very brazen about what lore it shows. And I say this because one of the GIFs that Megacat Studios posted to their website is possibly the biggest thing for lore in any FNAF game for like 5 years. And I'll just play the GIF they shared and let it speak for itself. Yeah, that's the missing child incident, just fully shown in game. Now, let's be really clear here. It's still most likely that this is an agony hallucination, so we're not literally traveling back in time and seeing exactly what actually happened with the missing child incident. This is more so a twisted representation of it. I mean, for one, the kids aren't in suits, they're just strewn about. And for two, this is a fleshy, organic monster, not William Afton. William Afton did the missing child incident, but you know, maybe he looked like this monster to the kids he was killing. However, this is still incredibly important, especially because, and it's somewhat hard to see, but if you brighten this image, it appears as though there are 6 bodies, not 5. One of the issues a lot of people had, myself included, with Into the Pit was that it was insistent that there were 6 bodies in this room and not 5. And we've always heard that the missing child incident was 5 kids, not 6. So what's the deal here? Who is this 6th kid? Well, I personally believe it's most likely to be Charlotte, the spirit of the marionette. After all, she's been kind of grouped in with the MCI for a long time, and even as recently as Help Wanted 2, Charlotte, or the puppet, has been grouped up with the MCI in both endings. She's one of the 6 Faz Force characters you have to collect, and she's one of the 6 puppets that get placed on a grave at the other ending. So I wonder, is this just grouping all of William's victims together, or are all these games trying to imply that Charlotte's death was part of the missing child incident? It's hard to tell. You would think that she wouldn't be, because her body was left on the street, so it was probably found and not missing. But technically, we never see her body get found. And even if it was, her death likely occurred around the same time as the MCI. It's definitely food for thought. Now, there's one more thing I have to record separately from the rest of this video. As of right now, in 2 days, the jeffspizza.club website is going to go live. Right now, it just says come back on June 12th, and you can dig for some files, but I figured it's best to just wait for the website to launch and talk about what it has. So in case there's so much cool information, I'm going to write and record a reaction to it after it comes out, and I'll put it right here. And I'll also let future me handle the outro. So Tag, you're it. So, yeah, this is the Thursday before the video goes out. Website didn't go live, actually. FNAF fans are insane, and we broke it, so we have to wait for MegaCat to kind of fix it. I wish the best for the team, and good luck. I know this is a really stressful time. I feel bad for you because I know there's going to be rabid fans down y'all's necks. We did get a new trailer. It was an updated version of the leaked trailer from January. It's mostly the same trailer, but some visuals have been updated. Notably, that whole rant I went on about is this 2 different eras of one location? We get in this updated trailer the same animation, but with a new location. So it does seem like it was just development. They needed to finish updating it. However, we get this location and this location. It seems like both options were right. This was because of development, but there are different eras of similar locations that we'll be seeing. So yeah, but that's about all MegaCat Studios has shown us about Into the Pit in the lead up for it to eventually come out, maybe. Who knows when? If you want to know what Steelwool is telling us about their games, I actually did a full video on the interview they had with John FNAF last week, which you can watch right here. In the meantime, if you want your fan art featured on the channel, make sure you share it with #RightTart. A huge shout out to the best channel members, the Dough Risers, and until next time, as always, stay toasty, slices.